Today, inshallah, this past Monday, I was actually talking about who are those people who earn the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today, inshallah, in this brief khatira, I want to talk about how we have to always be aware and be careful about not doing those things that can incur Allah's wrath and His anger upon ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, it is a reality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, while He is Ghafurur Rahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is indeed Shadidul Iqab. He is the one who gives and inflicts the most painful punishment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, various places, He talks about Jannah, but He talks about Jahannam. He does mention, it is mentioned in the Hadith Qudsi that His rahmah and mercy trumps and it overpowers His anger and His ghadab. But there is no doubt in the reality that there is something called the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is interesting that you find people till today that they will commit sins and sins and sins, and in order to make them feel good, they will say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim. We remind ourselves that in Surah Al-Hadid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the munafiqun, and He says about these people that there were 4 steps that they took in order to land themselves in the fire Jahannam. And the very first one was وَلَكِنَّكُمْ فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. Then the next step was وَتَرَبَّصْتُمْ. And then the third step was وَارْتَبْتُمْ. And then the fourth step was وَغَرَّتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي. There are times when we go so deep into a sin that then coming out of that sin, leaving that sin becomes so difficult. And at that time, the best way to console ourselves is, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim. Yes, He is indeed Ghafur Rahim, but He is also the one who will inflict a pain and a punishment upon people. In Surah Al-Haqqa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions those who will be given their book of deeds in their right hand. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the flip side, He does mention those who will be given their book of deeds in their left hand. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives a very detailed description of what will happen to these people in the fire Jahannam. So we have to always be aware that there are 2 different concepts. There is the rahmah of Allah, the mercy of Allah, but then the ghadab of Allah. And that is why we find such great people such as Umar al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, who says that I judge my matters between hope and mercy and the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so on one hand you have hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive, but there's khawf and raja. There is fear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish me. So that's why we have to always be cognizant of the fact that yes, while Allah is there and He will forgive inshallah, but we don't do those things to incur Allah's wrath. What are some of the things that we should stay away from that will incur Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wrath that is mentioned in the Quran? First of all the first one is those who are mentioned. They are mentioned in Surah Al-Fatiha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Who are those? Now often you will see that in many books or many translations of the Quran, it will be written over there, those who are the Yahud. And وَلَا الضَّالِينَ is a reference to those who are the Nasara. That does not necessarily mean that every single Yahud is al-Maghdubi alayhim. There could be other people who are not Yahud who are al-Maghdubi alayhim. But the question is that why is it that the Yahud were referred to as al-Maghdubi alayhim, those who incurred Allah's anger? The reason is that one of the things about the Yahud and Bani Israel is they had the knowledge, but they did not have the action. They had their ilm, but they did not have amal. They knew what was the haqq, but they chose not to follow the haqq. And not only that, but when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the fact that he came from the lineage of Ismail alayhi salam, and Bani Israel came from the lineage of Ishaq alayhi salam, they outright rejected the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Though they know, and by the way, it is mentioned in the books of Sirah, that the reason why they were in Medina to begin with is because based on their own teachings, they knew that something is going to happen here. the final prophet will come here. They did believe in that. But just because he was from the lineage of Ismail, they rejected the message of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to them as al-maghdubi alayhim. Those who know what is right, but they choose not to follow it. Now, this is not only for them. Think about even for us, how many times, wallahi, many of us, when we do something that is wrong, we know that this is wrong. We know it's wrong. I do something, I say something to someone, I know I'm doing something that is wrong. That is al-maghdubi alayhim. Because you have the knowledge. We know what's right and what's wrong, but we choose to do still what is wrong. How many times in family matters or community matters, we take the side of those who are doing wrong. Why? Because they might be from our family, for example. But I know what I'm doing is not right, but because they are my family, I have to give them preference over Allah and His Prophet ﷺ. That is al-maghdubi alayhim. Why? Because we know what's right, yet we choose to reject the truth. So it's not only, a lot of times when we read the Quran, we have a very narrow vision of what the Quran is trying to tell us. We have to expand that understanding, and a lot of times we will realize that we fall into that same category. The next group of people upon whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have His anger and His wrath upon are those who stay away from ibadat. Now let me explain this way. Many of the ulama, they say that one of the signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset with you, He does not take away things from you in life. Every single person, Muslim, Kafir, they all are inhaling, exhaling. Everyone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fed. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he says that do not give those who do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says no. قَالَ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَأُمَتِّعُهُ قَلِيلًا. Even those who don't believe in Allah, I will give them. But the ulama, they say that one of the signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset with you is that He takes away the tawfiq. He takes away the opportunities to do good. You know how many people, they have the time, they have the money, they have the opportunity to go for Umrah. They have the money, the time, the opportunity, the money to go for Hajj. Allah does not give them the tawfiq. Allah takes away the tawfiq from them. How many times we're sitting at home, we know it's time for Salat. Salat time is going. It's going, and it's gone. That's a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset. He's taking away the tawfiq from you to pray Salat. That in itself is an alarming sign. Whenever we know that we can do something and we're still not doing it, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perhaps upset with us. So that is why we have to always be very careful and be very, pay attention to these kind of things. The third thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despises, or He's angry with these kind of people, are those who have pride and arrogance in their heart. Why? Because this is only and only a right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.